So the second half of our show tonight, Wrestling Pages has been provoked by the fact that me, yours truly, Max Page, is one of the editors of Your Muse, and Chris Russell is one of the contributors. So we've been talking a lot about the Muse.
Yeah, the Muse has been one of our biggest resources, really, for content.
And now the last couple of weeks we've been talking about Munsu a lot.
We have, though.
So we're gonna direct our attention to the right side, the light side of things.
The right side.
So we're going to talk about kind of journalism and the nature of reporting and stuff like that. So tonight we're here with Russell Cochrane as our second interviewer. He's a political science undergrad student, history minor.
Recent graduate.
Recent graduate. Whoop, whoop. He's been on the Munsu board of directors for 2 years as an arts rep in the past. He's a contributor to the Muse and did freelancing. He's an executive on the Mun Debate Society and co-chair of the Mun Poli-Sci Society. And now he's kind of a freelance contributor to publications like the Telegram, the Global Mail, and he runs a blog called Pretty
Readable.
Pretty Readable.
It's readable-ish.
So thank you for coming on today, Russell.
Thanks, Russell. It's great to have you on.
All right, thank you.
So we're going to kind of start off the same way we talked about before, and we just want to, so you're a journalist?
Yeah, I am.
You call yourself a journalist?
I like to say so.
So what is that?
It's paid for it.
It's better than, vagrant, but...
So what does that even mean?
I perceive things around me, hopefully before other people do, and I write about them.
True. Okay, true enough. So...
the thing is, when I first met you, we were, I knew you from the board. I knew you as a shoot disturber.
Yeah, I kind of have a history of that.
What made you move from like one side of the table to the other in terms of being involved in the political, getting your hands dirty, to kind of taking that third party reporting perspective?
So, reporting, you have to recognize, is a vocation that requires extreme objectivity, but as well trying to just be fair. And when I started at MUN, when I was doing political science, I was involved in politics. So I was involved in the union. I was involved in the Liberals for a while, but what largely I saw behind the facade of being everyone is inclusive is these very top-down structures, things where you have the goons, but my experience, it might be different from Ryan's. It likely was, because I have a great deal of respect for Ryan, his ilk, but what I found was it's largely not something for me. It's largely a behind closed door, very cloak and dagger process that when I got into journalism, I was initially going to go to law school, and I decided to ditch that all because money's not worth it. I'd rather do something where the soul is in it, right?
Totally. Yeah, I get that. So I think we're gonna go back to more broad sense journalism, and maybe a couple interview tips for us after. But now, for anyone who doesn't know, which may be a lot of you or maybe very few of you, Russell is the incoming news editor.
Yeah, I didn't mention that.
Yeah, I'm gonna be
that's okay. Well,
news at the
you
Muse.
savor
It
it.
rhymes.
You savor it. Russell's gonna be
Chris.
the editor of news at the Muse for the upcoming year. It does sound awesome that way.
Doesn't it though?
Yeah, it does though. And so, Russell, what are some of your expectations during your tenure at the Muse next year?
Well, I mean, clearly I'm hoping to bring my experience to it. So one of the things that really bothers me when people talk about the Muse here is that we always focus very clearly on the negative. So there's people who have never read the Muse saying, we don't really like it, it's awful or whatever, right? But people don't recognize it for the institution that it is. So you take it for what it is and not for what it's not. Is that we don't have a journalism school, and that this is an opportunity especially when you have people around who have been freelancing for a significant amount of time, to gain experience in the field, to gain editorial experience, to gain some sort of knowledge about interviewing techniques. And I mean, I'm happy to help you guys with that as well if you like. But yeah, it's I'm hoping to take the Muse in a different direction. Clearly, I have a lot of respect for Laura House. She was the editor before myself in the news. She's now the editor-in-chief, as Max knows. I mean, he's with us now, too, as well. And I have high hopes.
Yeah, so, and one of the reasons why I'm really interested in talking about Russell and the reason that Chris and I decided we wanted Russell on the show is because I'm going to take a role as an editor next year, and I'm interested in learning from you guys, and not just Russell, but we contacted Laura and John as well to talk, and we'll hopefully get them on soon as possible.
Yeah, definitely.
And I happen to be out and about.
Russell.
Yeah, Russell was our third choice.
Yeah, I was at the bar today.
Russell squeezed time in his busy schedule to get on our show. So, and that's kind of why we want to talk about it. So the thing that I'm kind of have a misunderstanding with, or the thing that I'm kind of confused about is I want to prepare for writing. I want to have everything ready and prepared. I want to almost have it done before the semester even starts, but I don't think you can do that with news in the sense that news happens and you need to report it. So as somebody who wants to be planned, can you plan for it?
Definitely not in the sense that you could have anything prepared. So there are definitely a lot of different archetypes of stories. So, when last night I was stationed at the NDP headquarters for the Virginia Waters by-election results. And, I knew what was going to happen. I actually, oddly enough, I predicted that PCs would win, but I also predicted, hey,
you were close.
You pipe down. But I actually predicted that the NDP would get 21%. I was spot on.
True.
And so the thing about reporting news and preparation is that you kind of have to know your beat well enough so that you can have an idea of what probably should happen, but as well keep your ear to the ground close enough that you hear about it before other people do.
Totally.
Because that's the nature of being media, right? If people have heard about it well enough before you do, you're not reporting the news. You're kind of just, reposting things on social media. It's like a Huffington Post issue, right? You're just retweeting.
Yeah, fair enough.
Send the initial tweet.
Yeah.
Write the first article.
Yeah, be the one who's getting retweeted.
Yeah, get the scoop, or else you're not doing your job. But yeah, the key is kind of always to you have a certain area of focus that your reporting is on, and you need to keep an eye on it. And that's kind of all you can really say. There are certain aspects that you start to get an intuition for, but
I picture you with you have the radio that is hooked up to the police radio frequencies, and you've got all these people that you can call on at any time for favors to hear inside scoops. Is that what it's like?
I feel like I picture you with the card in your hat. Sir.
Sir. No, here's a scoop for you, boys. Oddly enough that you mentioned that, your analogy is a little like it. I remember back in I got set up last night at a desk in the newsroom because mine was taken apparently, where the person who was reporting in this desk had one of those broadcasters for the hospital.
The poll?
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was was definitely weird that having that like going off in my ear while I'm like trying to transcribe quotes from like the Scrum of Chilo O'Leary, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely not quite like that. You build working relationships with different people that are in a certain scene, and so I get along fairly well with most of the liberals, in spite of how derogatory I am towards them. Somehow they still like me. But yeah, you just have to build a working relationship where people know that your coverage of them is actually fair. It's that it's very rare that a reasonable person will fault you for covering them in a balanced way. Most of the time, if someone does call you out on that as a communications officer, first thing you should know as a journalist is don't care about the communications. Like, communications officers' opinions.
All right. Now, Max was just giving me the signal to move on into something else. But first, I've got a little surprise question for both of you, because for anyone who doesn't know, the Muse is, I think it's for sure, they're switching from a paper every week to a paper every 2 weeks. Bi-weekly, but with heavy emphasis on online content. And Max is actually going to be the online content editor of the Muse for the first year of this system.
Max is the way of the future.
Yeah, so I just kind of want to ask both of you, just real brief, just kind of how do you see this transition going? What are your plans for it, Max? And Russell, what are your hopes and dreams for it, I guess?
Do you want to go first on it? Or?
I mean, the first thing that I've kind of recognized, the first thing that I recognize is that
I cut the brakes.
These jobs are yearly, so it kind of first and foremost, I got to make sure that I take on what the past online editor is kind of laid out in front of me, and take on the roles or take on the initiatives of the greater Muse team. So making sure that I'm embodying the interests of everyone and not going all crazy and wild card. Thank you very much,
Chris.
And I mean, the way that I get my news personally is online, first and foremost, through video, through audio, and through like these secondary means or medians like Facebook and Reddit and stuff like that. So I mean, or Google News even is another one that I get my news through. So I think that just kind of making the Muse more pleasing to how I'm already finding my news is how I want to position the online stuff. What do you think, Russell? I mean, some people are creating this kind of notion where because it's only twice or once every 2 weeks, it's like that reflects negatively on the Muse, but does it really?
No,
it shows they're changing with the times, if you ask me.
The thing is that this is something I've had to think about a lot, because this is my career, right? Professionally, I am a journalist, and the transition from print to digital has been very sluggish, and it's been very brutal, especially to print journalists, because what we've seen is that we've seen a lot of people coming out of journalism school without jobs. We've seen people coming into photojournalism being completely unqualified for anything to do with any given newspaper. And we do have to innovate on that because no one else is. We've seen the rise of paywalls, and they've been moderately effective, but creating a new proxy in order to get into a news site is something that takes 5 seconds. So we do need to move digital. I would like to see a lot of our content go digital. Specifically, printing costs are very high. We print through Transcontinental. They're great, but I've got a copy of the Muse in front of me, and we have these huge ass pictures. We've got Mouth Off in the corner where that should be online. I'm gonna be perfectly honest about that. And there's oh yeah, but
peanut gallery over here.
Yeah, but my point being that The way of journalism, especially written journalism in the future, is digital, and that is something that the Muse needs to get with. In order to promote digital journalism, it's going to be difficult because the way that we promote ourselves to students right now is that we have these racks everywhere. So you see copy Muse everywhere. It's like, well, I'll pick it up and I'll do the crossword. And eventually you might read an article or two. And if you find those articles good, then you might read some more. And hopefully my goal is to make it so that all the articles are good, to make you read some more. Long process. But
I mean, speaking
selling that is going to be a process, and I think Max is going to be good at it.
Even if everyone committed to the idea that our content needs to be online, when you talk about the stands at the Muse or that the papers come on, I mean, how many print papers are being distributed right now that I can get my hands on? I mean, we have like stuff like the Gazette, the Overcast, the Muse, the Telegram. But when you get when you move
Independent still in print?
the Independent, when you move stuff.
Yeah, very rarely.
When you move the content online, now you're in a market that is saturated with so much stuff that sometimes it's news, commentary, whatever. So it's kind of comfortable to print stuff, because there's a less of a competition for who's getting their hands on this news. When you go online, you could get swept away in the depths of the internet.
Well, I'd say that the specificity of the content is what matters in that case, right? So, like, no one goes on, Reddit or, the National Post in order to read news about downtown St. John's. That's just not the case. You want, it's a difference between scopes. So the scope of a paper determines what its content, where its beats end.
That's fair to say, because we still get the Globe and Mail here. We still get national papers being distributed amongst the local ones.
Yeah, and they come here, but they don't talk about us. And that's what you need when you're talking about a local paper, right? So, as always, you consider a paper for what it is and not for what it's not. And there's, a scarcity in local news. I think that the Muse and the Telegram kind of have a monopoly on that. When we move to digital, I think it'll kind of flatten that landscape out, and I think that we should try to be on the cusp of that. We should try to be pushing to be the main source of news for students online within our community.
I would just like to say breaking news coming in from Jordan Lester, who's tuning in live. He just told me that the Globe and Mail is, in fact, no longer in print in Newfoundland.
It's not.
It's no longer distributed.
Thank you to Jordan Lester and all our loyal listeners out there. What's going on, Jordan?
That
we get tweets in. Oh my gosh!
Oh, yeah.
That is a quick catch, but
our 10th caller is gonna win a trip to. Or can we?
Yeah, well, I mean,
No.
we also lost Post Media a while ago, but the point remains the same: is that print media is dying. The matter, as much as I really hate to say it, because this is a matter of livelihood to me, but the act of putting ink on paper is ending. And we should make an active attempt not to be caught in that crossfire.
Yeah, I want to tie a question into, because it's just on the back of my mind from what we were talking about earlier when we were talking about how to be the first one to receive an article or take on a particular piece of news, and you talked about establishing relationships with people so they become comfortable with you as a reporter and you're able to get more out of them as an interviewee relationship. And I'll tell you, we've had people on this show, and there's people even like yourself that we want to just grill. We want to expose you and do a whole thing
right now.
But
bring it.
At the same time,
you're not grillable. There's nothing to grill you about.
All right,
we've
so you
had,
say.
We've had some people on who we might have wanted.
So the
to
question
grill.
is, but there's
recently.
There's an impulse. Yeah, even with there's an impulse that makes you want to just do it. You do it for the hood. You do it for the guys back home. So when you establish when you're trying to
that
establish, when you're trying to create an atmosphere for an interviewee relationship, how can you still get the meat and potatoes out of an interview without coming on too strong and making future interviewers still willing to come talk to you?
It's a matter of leading questions, right? Because most of the time, like, people don't see the full interview, right? If you're going to post a full interview online or whatever, it's called just putting up a raw interview, which is kind of like the audio of me talking to someone. But what you want to do is that you want to open broad. So if you're talking about like an election result, so it's, you know, it's always you stick up your recorder and you say, you know, what do you make of this? And from there, you kind of just talk and try and make them feel comfortable. Talk in kind of a conversational way, and progressively you move from the very broad into slightly more specific. And by gathering something from the responses that they give, you can use those as premises for other questions that you use.
You gotta deduce it.
And eventually you get to a point where you can give like one, like the most you're gonna get is like 3-4 knockout questions. And that's like the meat and potatoes.
And it's kind of connected with your leading questions, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's that you lead them along a trail, or at least try and force conversation with your questions into a way where they're talking about what you want to talk about. And then you gather that and you write it down.
Right, and then ideally other people want to interview with you in the end.
Yeah, it's lawyers are good at cross-examination. Journalists are better.
Cool. All right, cool. So do we have anything else for Russell? Or
well, I just want to say once again that just speaking to your question, Chris, about the online and stuff like that, and I like the idea of diversifying. I mean, people often say that people behind radio mics and behind papers are, not a good look in the eyes. But I'll tell you, looking at this guy, Russell Cochrane, jeez, this guy needs to get on. Yeah. Needs to get on video. We got Ryan, Chris, and myself over here.
I second the motion.
These are beautiful people here, and when these people who are writing, and Ryan is a contributor as well to the Muse, and when these people are writing, I mean,
I'm going to take over for David Cochrane afterwards. They don't even have to change the graphics. It's just this Cochrane.
And that's what it needs to be, that diverse thing. Even if you did like
I've got a way better hairline too.
Every article could have a video and audio and a script along with, or an inscription along with it. And one more thing about online stuff, which I want to just mention sporadically, is that the thing about online content, which is a lot better than on paper, is online content can be edited and updated, whereas shit on paper is going to be there for life.
Continued stories.
So we're talking about continued stories and follow through with stuff like that. So
up to date.
And then maybe I'll turn it into an app that requires you to have minimum, at most 160 characters, and I'll make money. Do people make money off Twitter?
Yeah, people make money off that, I'm told.
Then
after you visit it 6 times, we'll charge you money. It'll be all right.
Yeah, that's
cool. All right, well, thanks for coming on the show,
That's
Russ.
very self-deprecating for me.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for coming on the show.